Alhamdulillah, nahmadahu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu bika min shururi anfusina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayyuhan nas taqu rabbakum alladzi khalaqakum min nafsin wahidah wa khalaqa minha zawjaha wa basa minhuma rijalan katsiran wa nisaa wa tasalu bihi wal arham inna alaykum raqiba. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu qulu qawlan sadida yuslih lakum a'malakum wa yaghfir lakum dhunubakum wa may yuti'illah faqad faza fawzan 'azima. Summa amma ba'd. Inna khayral haditsi kitabullah khairu hadi Muhammad wa muhtasatuha wa kullu muhtasatin bid'ah wa kullu bid'atin dalalah wa kullu dalalatin fin nar. I begin in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praises are for Almighty Allah, the Lord and Cherisher of the worlds, the Master of the Day of Judgment. He alone do we ask for help, because it is Allah alone who can help us. We ask Almighty Allah to put us to the straight path. Whomsoever Almighty Allah guides unto the straight path, no one can mislead that person. And whomsoever chose a path other than Islam, a path of his own, then it's only by the mercy of Almighty Allah can we get back to this path of Islam. Almighty Allah reminds us in the Quran, He says, O you who believe, fear me as I should be feared, and die not except in the state of Islam. My dear brothers and sisters, in today's life, one of the foremost questions we always ask ourselves, almost every day, why me? Why did Allah choose to put this thing on me? Why did He choose to test me with this calamity? Every single day, every one of us, we go through a different level of test in our life. And every single day when we go through this test in our life, we always question ourselves. Why is it that I'm facing this hardship? Why is it that this thing has come upon me? Is it something that I've done wrong? Is it that I'm being cursed? Is it that Almighty Allah is punishing me? These are questions that sometimes lead us to the end that it can cause us to lose faith, because we question if it's something that we're doing wrong. My dear brothers and sisters, Almighty Allah, He has destroyed nations before us because of their willful disobedience. Almighty Allah has quoted in the Quran that He has destroyed these nations because of what they've done. Almighty Allah will not destroy a single person because of the wrong that we have done in our life. When we've done wrong, when we feel that we've done wrong, we feel that things are upon us, we need to look at all of these trials as a test. Why do we look at it as a test? Because Almighty Allah, after we have done wrong, and we get these hardships that come upon us, we're still alive, and we're still Muslims. And therefore that gives us an opportunity that we should look at these two things as an opportunity of reflection. That we need to change something in our life. The hardship comes upon us as a reminder. The hardship comes upon us as a blessing. Every single sickness, every single hardship, every single thing that we suffer removes sins from us. And therefore we need to clearly understand that when these things come upon us, and when Almighty Allah has made us sick, we should, one, thank Almighty Allah that He has made us sick. And this may sound so strange. How do you thank Almighty Allah for making you sick? Because you see, we're sick in this world because our sins are being removed, so we are being purified for the life of the hereafter. That by itself is a blessing. Prophet ﷺ said, if you stub your toe, if you stub your toe, that's common for all of us. You walk and you're always stumping your toe some corner, you're asking yourself, I thought this thing was not here, but it suddenly appeared. That little hardship that you go through there, sudden pain, washes away sins. Therefore, what does the Prophet ﷺ say about it? He said the believer condition is always good. When he's tested, he calls upon Almighty Allah. And when he gets an ease, he thanks Almighty Allah. You see, that is the first part is the important part. When we are tested, we need to call upon Almighty Allah. When disaster strikes us, sometimes in that brief moment, we don't seek Almighty Allah's help immediately. When we get the news of death, what does Almighty Allah tell us in the Quran? We say, Inna Allahi wa inna Ilahi raji'un. From Allah came to Almighty Allah, it is gone. Likewise, loss of property, loss of anything. Let us, firstly, upon that moment of test, let us seek Almighty Allah's help immediately. You get sick, no matter how bad it is, on the way to the doctor, on the way to the hospital, just before you leave to go to the hospital, ask Almighty Allah to guide you. Ask Almighty Allah to guide you. Ask Almighty Allah for you to find a solution. It is these hardships that we have that allows us to understand, that allows us to appreciate when Almighty Allah gives us ease. My dear brothers and sisters, this life is a trial for the believers. And if life goes too good, then sometimes you have to worry. Maybe I'm doing something wrong that I'm not being tested. Because we know as a believer, we should be tested. And when it comes, let us expect it, and let us put our faith and say, you know what? This just occurred. Alhamdulillah, Almighty Allah has chosen me now for this test. All of us, including the Prophet ﷺ, was faced with hardship at some times in his life. And sometimes we question, as he did question. And as we saw the story of Surah Duha, Duha, Almighty Allah, the Prophet ﷺ did not receive revelation for some time. And he was getting frustrated. Did Almighty Allah lose his relationship with me? Is he punishing me for something? Does he not like me? And then Almighty Allah released that surah and let him know that Almighty Allah is always there for us, regardless of what we face. The question that we should ask ourselves when we get sick, or when we face these trials, are we there with Almighty Allah? Not if Almighty Allah is there with us. Are we there with Almighty Allah? Are we seeking His help? Are we being formed in faith in the midst of that test? My dear brothers and sisters, every single day, questions will come into our mind when we look at two things. One, we looked at we're making an effort in the religion. Why is it I'm being tested and I'm making an effort? That understanding goes, as we just mentioned, as a believer, we will be tested. But on the other hand, we also look that a man doesn't pray. A man does no good. And he's having life so easy. Again, it's a test. It's not just a test for us. It's a test for that person. Wealth is a test. Knowledge is a test. Comfort is a test. Because the more wealth, knowledge, and comfort we have, sometimes the less time we have for Almighty Allah. When somebody gets intelligent, they suddenly think, you know what? I should question the universe, and I should question their existence, and I should question if there's a God, makes them feel important. It makes them lose themselves. Wealth. I'm now too busy, too rich to reach out to the masjid. I have investments to look after. I have things to do. And what happens there? That wealth becomes a test. My dear brothers and sisters, it is only Almighty Allah that can save us from that. It is only Almighty Allah that can give us the comfort that we need in this life, even in the midst of a hardship. Even in the midst of a hardship, it is only Almighty Allah that can give us that comfort. Let us also look within ourselves. How many trials and hardships we faced in our lives? And how did we come out of it? And how fast did we come out of it? But then we need to ask ourselves now, did we learn from it? Did we learn from it? Did we go through this trial with patience and perseverance, knowing that it is Almighty Allah who's testing us? Knowing that this test has come from Almighty Allah? My dear brothers and sisters, no matter how hard of a condition we face, no matter how big of a difficulty we are in, always remember that Almighty Allah told us that in the midst of our difficulties, He will provide for us from sources we cannot imagine. He will provide for us from sources we cannot imagine. Don't sit and think, you know what, this hardship I'm faced with, my only solution is A, B, and C. Because Almighty Allah will provide for you from D to Z, the sources you never even knew existed. That is all created. And that is where this patience and perseverance, this reliance on Almighty Allah, this reliance on Almighty Allah, that He can provide for us, that He can take us out of any difficulty, that is what makes us believers. And that is what strengthens our faith. My dear brothers and sisters, we beg Almighty Allah to save us all from the trials of this life, to make our trials very easy for us when it comes upon us. We beg Almighty Allah to help us to remain firm, to help us to remain constant on this faith, to help us that anything that touches us, we always turn to Almighty Allah first. We beg Almighty Allah to give us all the goodness of this life and the goodness of the life of the hereafter. May Almighty Allah make our lives easy. May Almighty Allah guide us to the straight path. May Almighty Allah give us all goodness in this life and goodness in the life of the hereafter. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbina atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim, ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma shalli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, kama shallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbina atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. My dear brothers and sisters, many times we find that we think to ourselves that we can help people. And helping persons does not really always require for you to help them financially. Every one of us has knowledge and skill that is unique. Every one of us have knowledge and skill that is unique to us. And sometimes we realize that this knowledge, even though it might be secular academic knowledge, may assist the person in their education, in their schooling, in their university, in their jobs, in their home. We should share it. We should share knowledge commonly. Example. Most of our parents who are not tech savvy, our more mature or older folks, people like me, who might not be as tech savvy as some of the younger ones, there might be some things that we don't understand. The younger person will understand. Let us put now ourselves in the younger person's position. You know, and you're aware that your parents don't know enough, or your aunt or some relative don't know enough. That's a job there for you right now. That's the blessing there for you. Teach them. How many older persons are there browsing their phones on a daily basis? They're not aware of a simple thing like cybersecurity. They never even heard of it. I remember one lady coming to me one day. I was in class. She came from 2 houses away. She called me to say, emergency. I got to put in these 10 phone cards in my phone. I said, 10 phone cards in your phone? For what reason? She said, I just received a call. And the person said, I'll put in this and I'm going to win some money. I say, if we went there to this company to buy? No, but this person just called and says to stop. Just stall there. Let's check the phone and let's call back the number. Call back the number, obviously somebody's trying to scam you. You receive an email, you receive a message that you win money. Check my email, probably 1,000 messages of me winning things from Walmart, from stores I never even dream of going. Winning coupons of visits, and then I'm going to tell myself, like some crazy fool here in Guyana, hey, you know what, I can go claim that $1,000. They don't know me, it's a scam. But when you click on that simple link, it takes you to something that will damage your phone, damage your computer, and put you at risk. Simple knowledge like that, we need to start sharing to people. Somebody needs to learn a skill, they need to learn to drive to get a job, they need to learn how to use a computer, they need to do some reading, anything that makes a believer life easier. We get blessings for that. And sometimes it's all in a day's work for what we do at work. Sometimes that's what you do, that's what you study. When you check the children now when they leave high school, check the wide range of knowledge that they have. Then it can help us in so many ways. My dear brothers and sisters, you may never realize how the little knowledge that you have, that you think is little knowledge, can help another person. Always look out for people that may need this knowledge. Always look out for somebody that may need an advice. There are persons out there who have no one to turn to. There are so many children out there that cannot go to their parents for advice because of various problems. That's where we should come in. That's where we need to be there for everyone. And to see how best we can improve ourselves with knowledge of Islam, with knowledge of getting things done, and improve our family. Let us turn closer to Almighty Allah, and let us strive and see how best we can not only fill this masjid. I was telling the Imam the other day, I said, you know what? When myself and him and our generation go off, we need to start gearing the youths to replace us. We've reached an age that we need to start taking a back seat and see that the youths take over and see that they're doing things right. May Almighty Allah spare us to be alive, to see that they can take over and that they can continue this work and better us. Because we look at the abilities of Ziyad and we look at how well he's striving, and we beg Almighty Allah to guide him so that he can not only be here to guide the community, but he can be here to guide and to continue the work and to train others to do it. My dear brothers and sisters, pass on what you know to your children, to your grandchildren, to those out there, to the people of the Jamaat, to anyone. No knowledge No matter how much you teach somebody, Almighty Allah will not make them take you over. Knowledge is there, it should go, it should be spread. May Almighty Allah bless us all, guide us all. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.